Imagine walking through the halls of the U.S. Capitol, corridors usually alive with the footsteps of lawmakers, advisors, and civil servants, now eerily silent. Federal offices stand closed, national parks locked, and hundreds of thousands of federal employees sent home, unsure when or if they will be paid. No war, no natural disaster, no emergency, just politics. This is the world of government shutdowns in the United States, a strange yet powerful consequence of political deadlock. And today, we'll explore the story of these shutdowns, culminating in the record-breaking 2025 standoff, which became the longest in U.S. history. Today, you will hear about some of the most significant shutdowns in history. From the early skirmishes in the 1980s during President Reagan's administration, through the modern clashes under Presidents Clinton, Obama, and Trump. And finally, the epic 2025 standoff that held the nation in suspense for over a month. You'll witness how political brinkmanship translated into real consequences for millions of Americans, and understand why these events remain a cautionary tale in governance and democracy. Stay with us as we uncover the human stories, political drama, and historical context behind these extraordinary moments. By the end of this journey, you'll see that government shutdowns are far more than political footnotes. They are vivid reflections of the fragility, complexity, and resilience of American democracy. We dive deeper into the dramatic history of government shutdowns. Take a moment to subscribe if you love uncovering the untold stories of American history. Hit the like button if you're fascinated by political drama, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a detailed exploration like this one. These stories, though decades old, still shape our lives today. Now, to understand why the U.S. government can simply stop, we must travel back to a period when such a thing was unimaginable. Surprisingly, government shutdowns are a relatively recent phenomenon. Before the 1980s, late budgets were treated as administrative delays. Even if Congress did not pass a spending bill on time, federal agencies continued to operate, and essential services carried on without interruption. Citizens rarely noticed, and the political consequences were muted. Government inefficiency may have caused some frustration, but the machinery of democracy never ground to a halt. Everything changed with a legal reinterpretation in the late 1970s and early 1980s. A senior legal official ruled that, under the Anti-Deficiency Act, federal agencies could not legally obligate funds without congressional approval. Essentially, this meant that if Congress failed to pass a funding bill, or at least a temporary continuing resolution, large portions of the federal government would have to cease operations immediately. This change transformed a technicality into a powerful political tool. For the first time, lawmakers realized that withholding budget approval could directly affect the daily lives of millions of Americans. Suddenly, political disagreements were no longer abstract. They had tangible consequences. The first shutdowns were short-lived, often lasting just a few days. In 1981, during the early years of President Ronald Reagan's administration, minor budget disputes led to brief pauses in operations. Few people outside of government circles noticed, but even then, the precedent was clear. Government shutdowns were possible, legal, and a reflection of political brinkmanship. By the early 1990s, the concept was firmly established. public awareness grew, and media coverage highlighted the human impact. Closed museums, furloughed workers, and delayed services. It was now evident that these shutdowns were more than procedural hiccups. They were a window into the tension between the legislative and executive branches and the ideological battles shaping the nation's fiscal priorities. In this documentary, we will trace the evolution of these shutdowns, from minor interruptions to major national crises, culminating in the unprecedented 2025 standoff. Along the way, you'll hear stories of workers sent home, parks shuttered, and Americans caught in the crossfire of political gridlock. You'll also see how each shutdown reflects the broader struggles within U.S. democracy and why these historical events remain relevant today. This is the story of how an invisible law reshaped the functioning of the United States government and set the stage for decades of political drama. A story of power, responsibility, and the human cost of gridlock. Scene: archival footage of Reagan-era Washington, D.C., black and white images of federal buildings and congressional chambers. By the early 1980s, the stage was set for a new kind of political showdown. Government shutdowns were no longer hypothetical. They were now a legal possibility, a mechanism by which Congress and the President could assert their priorities. The first notable test occurred in November 1981, during the Reagan administration. A dispute over funding levels and specific budget items led to a brief, 3-day shutdown. While relatively minor by later standards, it marked a turning point. For the first time, the public could witness the direct consequences of political gridlock: closed offices, furloughed employees, and a growing awareness that government operations were vulnerable to partisan conflict. Shortly thereafter, in 1984, another short shutdown erupted over budget disagreements concerning federal pay raises. Again, the closure lasted only a few days, yet it reinforced a critical lesson. Government shutdowns were becoming a legitimate tool in the tug-of-war between the executive and legislative branches. However, it was the 1995 to 1996 shutdown under President Bill Clinton that would truly bring this phenomenon into the national consciousness. The conflict centered around the federal budget, with House Republicans, led by Speaker Newt Gingrich, pushing for significant spending cuts. President Clinton, defending social programs and opposing certain reductions, refused to sign the proposed appropriations bills. The result? A 21-day shutdown, the longest in U.S. history at that time. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees were furloughed, national parks closed, and key government services suspended. Airports, museums, and even some public health services were affected, bringing the political stalemate into everyday American life. The media coverage was intense. Images of furloughed workers waiting outside government offices, shuttered park gates, and citizens facing delayed services became emblematic of the political showdown. Public opinion swayed back and forth, with both sides facing scrutiny for prolonging the shutdown and the real-life consequences it inflicted. The 1995 to 1996 shutdown also demonstrated the growing power of public perception. Lawmakers realized that the American people were watching closely, and that the political cost of a prolonged shutdown could be significant. For President Clinton, navigating this complex landscape required careful negotiation and strategic compromise, ultimately ending the standoff with both parties making concessions. This period cemented government shutdowns as not just political events, but national spectacles. They became dramatic, high-stakes contests with visible human consequences, influencing public opinion and shaping the strategies of future administrations. As we move into the 21st century, shutdowns would become longer, more ideologically driven, and increasingly visible to Americans across the country. From the Clinton-era standoffs to the modern shutdowns under Obama, Trump, and finally 2025, each episode would reflect both the evolving political landscape and the enduring tension between governance and gridlock. Camera pans over empty government hallways, intercut with archival news clips of shutdown coverage, emphasizing human impact. These early shutdowns were more than procedural disputes. They were the prelude to a new era in American politics, one where the daily lives of citizens became intertwined with the battles fought in the halls of Congress. As the 21st century progressed, government shutdowns became not only more frequent, but increasingly complex, reflecting the growing polarization within U.S. politics. The Obama administration faced one of the most significant modern shutdowns in 2013. The dispute centered on the Affordable Care Act, a landmark piece of legislation that had transformed the nation's healthcare landscape. Congressional Republicans sought to defund or delay the law, while Democrats refused to pass any budget that included such provisions. The impasse resulted in a 16-day shutdown, affecting around 800,000 federal employees and countless citizens relying on government services. Airports experienced flight delays, passport offices closed, and national parks were shuttered. The media covered the crisis relentlessly, bringing stories of furloughed workers, frustrated citizens, and political brinkmanship into American living rooms. For the public, it was a reminder that political stalemates in Washington had real-world consequences. Fast forward to 2018 to 2019, under President Donald Trump. This shutdown, lasting 35 days, would surpass all previous records at the time, making it the longest in U.S. history. The conflict revolved around funding for a border wall, a signature promise of the Trump administration, which Senate Democrats refused to approve. The result was a protracted standoff that stretched through the holiday season, affecting government employees, contractors, and public services nationwide. While the political arguments were widely reported, the human toll was increasingly visible. Employees working without pay, delayed social services, and growing frustration among citizens who felt trapped by a system unable to reconcile differences. These shutdowns highlighted a critical evolution. In the modern era, the stakes were no longer theoretical. They were tangible and pervasive. Then came 2025, a historic standoff that would redefine the narrative around government shutdowns. Beginning October 1, 2025, the federal government ground to a halt, and the shutdown stretched for 43 days, making it the longest in American history. The deadlock was rooted in a complex mix of budget disputes, ideological clashes, and partisan strategy. House Republicans and Senate Democrats could not reconcile differences over fiscal priorities, including healthcare subsidies, infrastructure spending, and social programs. For Americans, the shutdown was not merely political theater. It disrupted everyday life. Federal employees were furloughed or forced to work without pay. National parks and museums remained closed, and essential services slowed to a crawl. The economic impact rippled across the country, highlighting how intertwined citizens' lives had become with the machinery of government. The 2025 standoff became a symbol of both political division and resilience. Negotiations were tense, media coverage was relentless, and public scrutiny intense. Ultimately, a revised appropriations bill passed, ending the shutdown, but the lessons remained clear. When compromise fails, the human cost is immediate and profound. These modern shutdowns, culminating in the record-breaking 2025 standoff, underscore the fragile balance of American democracy, where political maneuvering can halt the daily operations of an entire nation, affecting millions of lives in the process. From the early brief shutdowns of the 1980s to the record-breaking standoff of 2025, the history of government shutdowns in the United States is a story of tension, resilience, and the delicate balance of power. Each episode reflects the ongoing struggle between branches of government, the clashing ideologies within Congress, and the challenges of governing a diverse and dynamic nation. Shutdowns are often seen as political skirmishes, fought by lawmakers behind closed doors. But as we have seen, their impact is immediate and deeply human. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees are sent home without pay, social services stall, and citizens across the nation feel the consequences in real time. Museums close, parks are locked, flights are delayed, and families wait anxiously for passports and other government services. These disruptions are a stark reminder that political gridlock is not merely theoretical. It shapes the everyday lives of ordinary Americans. Beyond the immediate effects, shutdowns reveal larger truths about American democracy. They are cautionary tales, illustrating the dangers of partisanship and the cost of compromise failing. They also demonstrate the power of negotiation, resilience, and the necessity of institutional checks and balances. Each shutdown teaches both lawmakers and citizens that governance is a shared responsibility, and that the machinery of democracy relies on cooperation, even amid ideological differences. The 2025 standoff, lasting 43 days, was unprecedented in both duration and complexity. It exposed the intricate web of political priorities, the rising polarization in Congress, and the increasing consequences of budgetary deadlock. While the shutdown ultimately ended with a negotiated resolution, its lessons are enduring. The standoff reminded Americans that the government, though vast and powerful, is not immune to dysfunction, and that the citizens it serves are the ultimate stakeholders in the democratic process. As we reflect on the history of government shutdowns, one theme emerges clearly. Democracy is an ongoing experiment. It is fragile, resilient, and continuously tested by competing interests, public pressure, and the necessity of compromise. The story of shutdowns is also the story of America itself, a nation striving to balance freedom, responsibility, and governance. For viewers, these historical episodes are more than distant political events. They are reminders of the responsibilities we share as citizens, the importance of engagement, and the power of informed participation in the democratic process. Shutdowns are dramatic, disruptive, and sometimes painful, but they also underscore the capacity of American democracy to endure, adapt, and learn from its own challenges. camera pans over workers returning to federal offices, parks reopening, and everyday life resuming. From the corridors of power to the lives of ordinary citizens, government shutdowns have left an indelible mark on the American story. They are moments of crisis and reflection, of conflict and compromise, and above all, of a nation continually learning how to govern itself. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most dramatic aspects of modern American history. If you found this documentary enlightening, like, subscribe, and share. And remember, history is not just in the past. It shapes our present and guides our future. Fade out. End credits roll with archival footage of key shutdown events, highlighting both political leaders and the everyday people affected.